Bro, the vibe is awesome here. First time in 12 years the city of Boston has hosted the NBA Finals, a franchise that has flirted with reaching this benchmark several times in the last 12 years. But I also feel like there's a bit of a nervous energy here because as excited as the fans and the organization is for bringing the finals back here with the series tied at 1, the team hasn't been very good on their home court during their march to the finals here. Just a 5-4 record on this court right now. As you see behind me, the Celtics are warming up. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll have a chat with Derek White, who has been a key cog to the success of this Celtics run here to the NBA Finals. And he's done it while making the transition, coming over, being traded from the Spurs. We'll talk with him about what that role has been like for him as he has really adjusted to learning his exact job in this offense and defensively as well. He's made a really nice adjustment. Coming up a little later on after the Celtics take the floor, we'll hear from the Warriors as well. I'll chat with Klay Thompson. I'll also sit down with Steph Curry for a feature row that will air in our pregame show prior to Game 3 tomorrow night right here on NBA TV. So a really cool atmosphere here. I think a lot of the topics we're going to hear about. Can Klay Thompson get things going? We'll talk to him about that. He's obviously, as Greg noted in your earlier segment, he has struggled to get it going. Is that a product of, okay, shooters go through slumps, or is it a product of a guy who's going through the fact that he's had 2 catastrophic injuries over the last couple of years and he's still making his way back? I think we'll also hear about Draymond Green's temperament, the energy he's brought. While that's been a positive for the Warriors, is he coming too close to towing the line and ultimately potentially costing them a game if he gets ejected? And remember, this happened really early on in the playoffs, so it feels like eons ago. Draymond Green is still 2 flagrant foul points away from an automatic 1-game ejection, right? We can't forget about that. So when he gets in tussles like he did with Jaylen Brown in Game 2, you've got to be really careful. You get the wrong official blowing the right whistle, and it really could be catastrophic for the Warriors the rest of this finals if Draymond gets automatically ejected. Again, a flagrant 2 or 2 flagrant 1s automatically is a 1-game suspension for Draymond. In terms of the other side of the ball for the Celtics, I think we're going to hear a lot about the turnovers, how they clean that up, and how they go back to their core reason for how they got here, which is their defense. And can they really find a way to control the Warriors tomorrow night? So, Ro, I think there's a lot of excitement here in Boston. There's a lot of topics that we're going to cover, and we look forward to doing that over the next 2 hours.
Hey, Jared, it's got to be a great environment there, and you touched upon a lot. And in a weird way, I feel like both teams have to feel good about where they are because neither has really played great over the course of a 48-minute game. But do you feel like Boston, let's stick with them first, their size advantage was a disadvantage in the second half, really in Game 2 collectively? Robert Williams seemed to be struggling with the injury. Al Horford seemed to be struggling with his age. It just did not seem to be much of a factor. Is that also an area where they feel like they have to be better? Because that's the one really decided advantage they probably have when you match up these rosters.
Isn't it funny, Greg, what a difference a game makes? Right, we're looking at Al Horford in Game 2 and saying, I just celebrated his 36th birthday. This guy's getting old, can't really rely on him. That's like 48 hours after saying he had one of the great finals debuts in the history of the NBA Finals, the way he played, knocking down 6 threes. I think Al Horford will be just fine. I think he did hit on something with Robert Williams. I've felt throughout the entire course of the season, as good as Marcus Smart has been defensively, obviously winning Defensive Player of the Year, truly, they need Robert Williams to anchor that defense, right? You need to force Golden State to becoming a jump shooting team. You can't let guys like Steph and Jordan Poole find a way to get to the rim. And something looked off with Robert Williams, whether it was the injury he's been dealing with all postseason long or whether it was something else, whether it was the moment. We can't get into his head. They need Robert Williams to be better. And I think also, too, GA, and this is something you could speak better to than me, having 2 bigs on the floor, and remember, it's that 3-headed monster that Boston's gone to all year with Robert Williams, Grant Williams, and Al Horford. Keeping 2 of those 3 guys on the court and effective makes Golden State be a bit bigger. It makes then think about keeping Kevon Looney on the court with Draymond Green. Because one of the things that I really noticed, and I would not be surprised if we saw more of tomorrow night, is more of Draymond and Otto Porter. Otto Porter has been so good offensively and so good defensively that they give them a smaller look and another option that I think really gives Steve Kerr the ability to be more dangerous than, again, it's the strength and numbers mentality that we go back, 8 years ago to that started this whole thing. Otto Porter gives them that, especially if Andre Iguodala is not going to be available with the neck injury.
JG, before we let you go, obviously you're there on the scene. Coming out of Game 2, do you feel like either one of these teams has momentum going into Game 3, and if so, why?
No, I don't. I think GA is exactly right in his comments that both teams have to feel good about themselves, but also not great about themselves, because neither team has played sensational, right? We've seen 2 great third quarters by the Warriors, but we haven't seen a full 48 minutes from them. And obviously we saw an amazing fourth quarter from the Celtics in Game 1, and then a really good first half from them when they were down by just 2 at halftime of Game 2. But you haven't seen that explosive from the Celtics. Like, we're still waiting for that game here in the finals where you get Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum clicking on all cylinders together at the same time. We haven't seen that yet. So you got to feel good that that's coming if you're a Celtic fan. On the other hand, if you're a Celtic fan, you're worried about the Warriors that Klay Thompson hasn't gotten going. We haven't seen, that big Andrew Wiggins game yet that we've seen almost in one game of every series leading up to the NBA Finals. So I think truly, it sounds cliche, but I think in this series it's absolutely true. Game 3 is going to set the tone for the remainder of the NBA Finals, and it is a massive game Wednesday night right here in Boston.
Well, speaking of set the tone, he always does that, Jared. We appreciate you. Look forward to seeing who you sit down with later on in the show. TV's Jared Greenberg, like I said, always setting the tone the right way, and he has the best hair in the business.
It does look good. That's coming from somebody that ain't got no hair. I agree with you.
Marcus Smart, his hair looks good too. A little bit of that green in there. We're covering finals of games scoring 20 or more and multiple threes. His name is Steph Curry.
I think we always know how to just find a way to win games, no matter what style it is, high scoring, low scoring, defensive battle, shootout, whatever it is. And we find another level of grit and determination, and it's an ability to find a way to get it done and be in hostile environments where you get tested, you get pushed, and our experience kind of shows at the right time. So obviously in this situation, it's a must for us to win a championship, and we got to be up for that task.
Brandon on the right.
Steph was good. Brandon Scoopy Robinson, Dolly Sports. Clay talked about how he watched, or has recently watched, as of, I guess, a day or so, YouTube videos to kind of get some motivation going, shooting-wise.
Of himself? Is that what he's insinuating?
Yeah.
All the best do that. No, I like that.
You make mention that all the best do it. Who outside of yourself do you watch on YouTube shooting?
That's a great question. Go back and watch Ray Allen clips. Obviously Reggie, Seth Curry. Who else I watch? That's the top of the list. Might throw some old Virginia Tech Del Curry highlights in without the three-point line. But other than that, you're kind of just watching a lot of just film of other games and all that. It's not so much a YouTube thing. It's more just being an NBA fan and just watching Marcus Thompson. Unbelievable. I'm calling you out. It's like when you're in church and like the pastor's giving a sermon and you over there with your phone. You just more so just being an NBA fan and just consuming as much basketball as possible, and you start to get motivated and inspired by, all different type of people. Probably 50-50. He had a lot of great moments in both jerseys.
We'll go to Marcus next.
Yes.
I'd like to begin by repenting for my press conference sins. Two questions for you. One, is there any, I mean, you're a basketball historian. Is there any feel or juice from you're about to play a finals game in Boston against the Celtics, like as an NBA head? What does that feel like? I don't know why this keeps going off. It's my daughter. She needs to stop.
Don't blame it on the kids.
It is. It is. And then, see? I don't know. So, and then secondly, why do you think Gary Payton has become such a beloved figure so fast? Like, what is it about him? I don't know why this is happening.
I think I'll start with GP. Like, I think probably a lot of, just his name first and foremost in terms of, basketball history. And it's so hard to make this league in general, but even harder when I would feel like the odds of like the NBA's, player's son trying to, follow in the dad's footsteps. It's a difficult, challenging journey for him, coming out of college and trying to find his way, G League, training camp offers, bouncing around the league all over the place, and then finally finding a home. And last year, him coming in and making an impact. And I think he was on two-way last year. And, like, he was available but not really. And then knowing he could really help us this year, and then it actually proven to be an amazing difference maker. I think fans really resonate with that. They love the way, he approaches the game, his energy. He changes games without really, having crazy scoring outputs. It's just the stuff that you just get so much energy from watching him defend and, disrupt and do all that type of stuff. Fans love that, and we love it too as his teammates. So it's been awesome to watch his growth and development this year. And him coming off that injury, that moment he checked back in the game was an amazing. Response from the crowd that gave us a lot of juice. And, I'm sure more of that to come in this series. What was the other question? Oh, Boston. Yeah, this is special. Like, it's a historic team, the dynasties from, the 80s and how many championships they won, over the course of the years. All the different highlights you watch that just have a different iconic look when you see it on TV. Just watching Larry Legend do what he did in his entire career, even looking at the Boston-LA series, KG and, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Rondo, and getting the championship here. KG's hilarious post-game. Anything is possible, whatever. So there's a lot of history in this city and in this building, and should be an amazing atmosphere, out there on the court tomorrow and Friday.
Brian on the left.
Steph, have you found as you've gone through your career that the rims and the arenas are all generally the same? I know Jordan said something in the Denver series. I don't know if that was a joke but just in general, as you've gone across.
Well, that was because I think he saw one of them was offline or something that nobody else really saw. And then they actually checked it, and it was like, yeah, it was off center by like an inch or so. I see it more as like just the different venues have different, backdrops and lighting and stuff that certain shooters like more than others. It just depends on kind of what your flavor is. So I like Dallas was like it's like a bright arena, and I just like the lighting in there. The backdrop in Madison Square Garden is dope because it's the stage lighting and it's dark. Like I just there's certain things you see and you prefer with different arenas and rims around the league. So that's how I see it more so than the actual rim itself.
Oh, I'm here on the left.
Steph, Young Music ESPN. I think you can forgive Marcus. Yesterday was his birthday, so he's getting old. So I was wondering, there are not many teams that have two great all-time shooters like you and Clay. When one of you guys might be in a little bit of a slump, do you guys talk to each other? Do you guys give each other tips, or is it an unspoken thing?
Very unspoken thing. I think there's conversations around like maybe play calls or different looks to try to get somebody a good shot, but it's not so much mechanics or building up anybody's confidence, because you don't get to that level if your confidence is that shaky, where, you know, a couple bad games, you're like, oh, the world's falling. And we both understand that vibe. You don't want to, and honestly, you don't really want to hear anything about it if you're going through it yourself, because you know at any moment you can spark yourself to get back on track and get out of it. So it's the best thing you could probably say is just keep shooting, because that's the only way you get yourself out of some rough patches. I don't like to use that S word.
Last couple of questions. Monty on the right.
Stephen, you watched Clay the first two games, and he hasn't shot the ball as well as he can. But knowing his history, do you have a certain, I don't know, peace of mind or whatever, in knowing that what has happened the first two games is going to stop at some point?
History with him has shown there's no predictor to when he can just take it to another level. Regular season, playoffs, he's always just found a way to get himself going, and to, especially in the playoffs, just to make an impact that's loud. Usually it's really loud. And his demeanor never really changes. It's not really something you can just look at and be like,